Most people look at a small practice amp and expect it to sound like a tin can, but this little box actually has a bit of a personality. It is one of those pieces of gear that seems to punch way above its weight class, especially when you consider it is only pushing 25 watts through an 8-inch speaker. The first thing that hits you is the build quality. It feels solid, almost surprisingly heavy for its size, and that stainless steel aesthetic gives it a rugged look that suggests it can handle being tossed in the back of a car without falling apart. Now, the real magic here is what they call transtube technology. It is basically a way of mimicking the way a tube amp behaves, and honestly, it works better than you might expect. When you crank the gain, it does not just get fuzzy or thin. It actually starts to compress and growl in a way that feels responsive under the fingers. You get that natural grit that usually requires a much more expensive setup. The clean channel is surprisingly articulate, too. It stays pretty chimey and clear, which is great if you are just running some pedals into it or practicing scales. What stands out, though, is the voicing switch. You can toggle between modern and vintage settings, and it actually changes the character of the sound quite a bit. The vintage mode has that mid-range warmth that feels a bit more classic and rounded, while the modern setting is tighter and a bit more aggressive. It is a nice touch because it keeps the amp from feeling like a one-trick pony. You have a 3-band EQ to play with, which is essential because it lets you dial out some of that boxiness that smaller speakers sometimes suffer from. It is not going to replace a massive stack for a stadium gig, obviously, but for a home studio or a quick practice session, it is more than capable. There is also a tape or CD input tucked away, which is super handy for jamming along to backing tracks without needing a separate mixer. If there is a downside, it is that the 8-inch speaker can only move so much air. At very high volumes, it starts to lose a bit of that low-end punch, which is just physics at work. You are not going to get that chest-thumping bass response you would get from a 12-inch cabinet, but that is expected for this footprint. Also, while the gain is great for rock and blues, metal players might find themselves reaching for an overdrive pedal to get that extra tightness they crave. Still, for the price and the size, it is hard to complain. It is a reliable, no-nonsense workhorse that does exactly what it says on the tin, without any unnecessary fluff. It is the kind of amp that makes you want to pick up the guitar and just play, which is really all you can ask for at the end of the day. If you need something that sounds like a real amp rather than a digital toy, this is definitely one to keep on the radar.
Check out the video description for updated price. And thank you for watching this video.